You may have seen my last video where I explained two of the best ways I know of to release the glazing putty off of your hand into the window sash. That first one that I'm using right now, that's called the thumb technique, and that's where you push the glazing compound off of your thumb like you're scraping it right off of your thumb. I'm always using a push away from my body. It's really, really hard to install it on a pull kind of stroke. I made a little joke about it in the last video I did about how to load, and I tried to make it look as ridiculous as possible, but you know, it's not entirely obvious to the people who are trying it for the first time that it's not going to work really well. You really start to get that impression when you already start making a really, really big mess. But really, the goal is to just get the sash loaded so that you can then tool away the excess. And no matter how you get it in there, that's the point, and you're going to clean it up anyway. You just want to try to get it in there fast, and that's why I was showing you the methods that I was showing you. This is a typical glazing knife that you might use to glaze a window. This is my glazing knife that I've been using for a while. One of the things you should know is that this is a dedicated glazing knife, meaning I don't use it for anything else. You see how shiny and reflective the metal is? That's really, really important because that helps the glazing putty slide right off of the metal and not grab and pull it away. Okay, now that your glazing is loaded into your sash, the next thing is to do what I'm doing here, and that's trim away all the excess. One of the things that you'll notice I'm doing is I am following my glazing line from the top of the sash to the bottom of the sash, going all the way down, and I'll even jump over my muntin to do that. And one of the reasons why I do that is to take advantage of my body position, because you know, you're going to find a sweet spot where you're pulling your knife down and you're getting the result that you want. Well, you want to keep that, and so you'll lock your body into place to maintain that positioning. So the other thing I do is I try to position my knife when I start my line in the corner the way or at the angle that I want my corner to look when I'm finished cutting all of my glazing. So notice that I don't do one pane at a time. I focus on cutting all of my lines. I'm going to cut away all of my excess at one time so that I can capitalize on my body position and the momentum that I have. That's a little secret. Now, another secret is, if you notice the angle of my glazing knife as I pull it down the rail there, my glazing knife is angled almost parallel with the line that I'm cutting, and that's kind of a trick to use right there. You have to think of spreading the glazing almost like spreading peanut butter or butter on bread, or even like cake frosting, and holding your knife accordingly. This next move is one I like. It's pretty useful. I call it the corner chop, and what I do is I stick my knife in a kind of a vertical position and follow the angle of the glazing that I've made in my previous cut, and try to shape the corner as I'm removing the excess. And once all of the corners are chopped and shaped, then I'll gather the excess into the middle or something like that, and I'll start to dispose of it. This move right here is pretty important. This is me shoving glazing compound into the groove where the glass slides up into the meeting rail, and this is because this is on the bottom sash. I've seen a lot of people who will actually glaze this part of the sash like they glaze other parts of the sash, and the problem with that is when you glaze this like you do the other Munson bars, you can see the glazing from the inside of the sash. You're not supposed to do that. The intention is to just shove the glazing compound into the groove there, and that will give you a nice finished result that you can't see from the inside. So not being able to see the glazing compound from the inside of the window, that's a pretty important principle that you want to pay attention to. So your glazing lines are going to be inside what would be the molding profile that you can see on the inside of the window sash. And you definitely don't want to see the glazing compound from the inside. I'm going to go ahead and start tightening up my lines right now before I clean up the next panes, the ones furthest away from me. And you see what I'm doing right there? I'm just starting in my corners and getting my corners right. You want to start in your corners and work toward the center. And look how I lift my knife before I get to the other side. You see that? I'm going to turn the sash now so that I can do the other side from a comfortable position. And I'm going to start again with my corner chops. And I'm going to continue tuning my lines, starting and focusing on my corners. You know, if you get your corners looking good, then it seems like the rest of your lines will fall into place. So I'll always teach people to start in their corners and work toward the center of the pane of glass. This next move that I'm going to show you is probably the most important skill that you can learn to master early. And what that is, if you pay attention, I'm glazing alternatively right and left-handed. I'll go right and then left, and then I'll go right, and then I'll switch to the left hand there. Because what that is there's comfortable positions to hold the knife that allow you to glaze more simply and more cleanly. And if you can learn to do it right and left-handed, you will definitely have an advantage in the long term. So, I mean, you don't have to glaze right and left-handed, but there's definitely an advantage to it. There's less contorting your body into weird positions, for example. And, you know, I like that a lot. It'll also increase your speed over time and your finesse. And I think it kind of looks pretty cool too. So remember, you want to start in your corners and then work toward the center of the pane of glass. And that's the proper way to go about doing it. Of course, this is the magic dust phase, and this is the cleanup that takes all the oils that the putty left on the glass and starts to lick those up. It's pretty easy to do if you know what you're trying to accomplish. You know, one of the things you'll notice with my brush is that I tend to hold the length of the brush and brush the length of my glazing lines with the length of my brush. You know, the other thing that you'll notice me doing is that I'll take a moment and set my brush down and grab my knife and fix little spots that need to be addressed and tuned up. There's always going to be some little piece left in the corner, and you're going to have to reach in with your tool and pick it out. The magic dust helps to expose that. So I found something I have to pick out. Notice how my middle finger acts as an anchor on my muntin to help guide my knife into the center. I call that my creeping pick. That's a pretty important move there to understand how I do it. You know, if you just try to use the strength of your arm to reach in there to grab that little itty bitty thing in the corner, you'll have a really hard time. But if you use your finger to index where your hand is, you'll be able to move your tool into the corner much, much more accurately. Once I've completed the magic dust about as good as I think I can get it, I like to set the sash on a vertical like this because that'll help expose some other things maybe I didn't see. So basically I clear all of my excess dust and then I just go to check my corners because corners are important. I'll just go through the process of continuing to dust it off, investigating my lines, trying to find something that I missed, and just tuning it all up so that when I'm all done, I can, just have a nice product to give to my client. And you just continue the process until you get everything looking right, and it just takes a little bit of time. Care, practice, love, all of those things. One little last check to see how everything's looking from a different perspective, and we'll be done. And that's my thoughts on how to glaze a window sash. So, hope you enjoyed it.